Alright, goblins. I'm here to pillage village and review shows, and I'm too socially anxious to pillage village. So the last 2 episodes of House of the Dragon we will be getting into spoiler discussion for in a moment. If you want my quickie spoiler-free review, I think these episodes have been absolutely sensational. I don't really see a reason to be doing spoiler-free episode reviews this late into a season, so we're gonna go ahead and jump on into spoilers right on now. Because these last 2 episodes had 2 of the most important events in terms of setting up what is about to come for House of the Dragon, and that would be the wedding of Rhaenyra and Daemon and the death of King Viserys. Before we get too far into it though, I would like to just get into a couple review type elements for this show that I haven't touched on enough in terms of praise. And for those of you who want to know why I also wasn't reviewing last episode in its own video, it was because all I had was repeating a lot of the praise that I'd said for previous episodes, and that episode was doing a whole lot more setup. And so I wanted to be able to talk about the setup there and the payoff in this episode in one video, therefore I could hit a decent runtime without sounding redundant. I want to get you all good quality. And for better or worse, the reason I'm still doing weekly for Rings of Power is there's more to criticize, and so therefore I can get a longer, more in-depth video each individual episode. It's also improving, so I'm not trying to say it's like all bad, it's just when there's more to praise and criticize, you can make more videos about something. But I do want to emphasize something yet again that I've mentioned before, and that's because I've seen some people who clearly disagree with me on this, but I think the progression of time within this show is being handled remarkably well. In fact, I don't think I've seen better time jumps in a show before that are this significant. And I think the clearest example of that is how chemistry between characters is so believably evolving between these time jumps and communicated in a way where you as a viewer understand how these people's dynamics have shifted without having had to watch them. And that's just obviously great writing and acting coming together so that in the small moments you pick up on oh so much. Rhaenyra and Daemon, for example, they didn't have a whole lot of like intense dialogue back and forth, but the way they're working together in these smaller beats, the way they confront Alicent together and just kind of play off each other, you see that through their marriage, though they're not having these long exposit scenes about how much more they love each other and closer they've grown, they've become like a power couple. The same with Alicent. Maybe my one big criticism is I want more from this character. I'm craving more seeing from this actress and the writing around her because I find her desperation and obviously misguided steps to be again so believable. And talking about believably flawed characters, King Viserys is my favorite character of this season because I loved disagreeing with him. I loved understanding and misunderstanding with him. I think this show played with his motivations and why he was doing certain stuff and then kind of evolving or revealing different angles to his movements, especially the family ones, brilliantly. If you go back to my review of episode 1, I really thought this show was just going to be like a centerpiece for Rhaenyra and Daemon. I wasn't going to care too much about anyone else, but no, this full cast, this huge, hefty family dynamic has just invested me like it's a family drama. And maybe the best part of all of this coming together is, while I may not agree with every character, they're all behaving rationally enough, motivated well enough that at the end of the day, keeping it spoiler-free for what's to come, I'm going to feel pain at the loss of any of them because, while several people here are super hateable, they're at least kind of like love to hate them enough and rational enough that it will feel like a character who's not just serving a plot purpose, but actually exists in the storyline being lost. And that's one of my big issues with a lot of political-based stories, is sometimes there's certain people who are unbelievable in the way they're behaving, or they're just clearly doing certain things to push narrative. I'm not getting that anymore at all from this show. Everyone is acting in a way that I think makes perfect sense for them. And God, it's just due to the acting, writing, and casting coming together and delivering House of the Dragon and this fucking potent spear that just got me emotionally on the edge of my seat from start to finish. But the reason I started this in armor and I still have a blade at my side is because, 1, I went to the Ren Fair and spent too much money, but 2, episode before last ending in Daemon and Rhaenyra's union and how it was shot put such a feeling of foreboding for what I know is just down the road here. And this episode obviously handed us some olive branches of hope for reunion, but this is Song of Ice and Fire, motherfucker. And then for Vaemond Valerian, I feel so bad for this man. Spoke the truth absolutely in the right, and then he was on the receiving end of maybe one of the coldest moments in TV this year, where Damon upper jawifies him. It's not a full decapitation, I don't think. Maybe there's a difference, I don't know. And it's another sign of the writing where I'm like, this guy's absolutely in the right. I agree with him. I'm still on Team Black, though. And it's like, I shouldn't be. I should be repulsed by this, but And what I realized in hindsight this episode did incredibly well was, well, it kind of put the adults in a more mature, believable, we can maybe squash some of this beef position. Having their children give so much character and agency throughout this episode, and seeing them snip at each other's heels and begin to really have their own kind of conflicts, clearly rooted in their parents' conflict, but just now evolving and becoming their own thing, that becomes the catalyst for the danger we all still feel. And then that final scene with Alicent and King Viserys, which Rhaenyra was absolutely right. I have tons of criticisms of her Alicent as a person, but she's been a very faithful wife in a lot of ways to her husband. And there is so much believable miscommunication and bad faith, immediate interpretations of actions from people who disagree with each other, that it's now becoming a textbook example for me to point to for TV writing of how, yes, bad communication can actually be a great storytelling mechanic if it's justified. And House of the Dragon, in my opinion, feel free to disagree with me, has justified every instance it's relied on of people not trusting each other, not wanting to work together, and then taking each other's actions the worst way they can to then just deepen the schism that already exists between them, which is something we see in the real world constantly. As I recently said in my character trope tier list video, bad communication is annoying 90% of the time, not due to the fault of bad communication as a storytelling mechanic, but the writers using it lazily. And my God, has it not been used lazily here, especially in political based stuff like this. You have to have bad faith communication at points. Before I get into King Viserys' narrative here and how he kind of stole the show for me, I do want to also just give a massive shout out to those who worked on the effects for his face, both practical and not. Yeah, there was some wonkiness at times, but still the visual of it never didn't make me feel as it should. And then the physical performance backing it up really sold even the not perfect elements that we were seeing on display. Absolutely astounding in terms of just giving the viewer that kind of like, but feel bad for the guy in the same moment vibe. I don't know how else to put this, and I hope people understand what I'm meaning. It didn't feel like what we were watching with this performance and the effects was just meant to make us feel repulsed by them, but it also made me realize that King Viserys is a man living through this and how it was brought to us, and that was so powerful to me. It really never stopped feeling human and bringing out so much sympathy. Feel for the guy left and right. He is surrounded by people who are more of snakes than him, and he's constantly kind of playing catch up, but his final real act as king in this last episode sent a message, a cannon shot across the bow of his power, the weight he still feels, and that was such an amazing emotion for me to feel as a viewer in his arrival, where yes, he looks so frail, so broken, but he still had a presence, a weight, and it was mighty. I found myself rooting for this king that I had no loyalty to before, but just in this episode I was like, you sit that throne, your majesty, oh my God. And then the dinner afterward where he just pleads and we see the first chance at all of this conflict being avoided when Alicent and Rhaenyra give each other toasts, which in any other unearned context would come across farcical or poorly written and just like a way to move on. Because of all the setup, totally worked. And then yeah, having it being underplayed by their little shit kids being little shits, especially the blonde ones. And then we get that final reflection where Daemon and Aegon are looking at each other and just I want to avoid this family at all costs. I also want to draw my dagger and take a side. And that's why I think we've seen so much of this green versus black debate take off online. Absolutely Team Black from my personal opinion, but that's just because, you know, I'm a logical, smart individual. Fight me, Team Green. I let my loyalty be known as soon as the video started. Does that mean I'm following incestuous murders? Indubitably. But that's the beauty of House of the Dragon. I find myself hardcore on the side of incestuous murderers, and I'm like, yeah. I'm having such a good time with this one, y'all. I can't wait to rewatch this once it's all over and go back to like Millie Alcock and the younger actresses and catch up on more foreshadowing for where they're going to develop. Emma Darcy, wow. I I didn't even talk about another performance I think deserves an Emmy because King Viserys was so incredible, but also, yes, they deserve an Emmy as well. The efficiency in House of the Dragon's writing, I think, will be one of the big pieces of its legacy. How people are going to be able to look back and realize by episode 3, they cared so much not only for the main characters, but side characters, and side characters' possible future iterations through their children and their grown-up versions. The only criticisms I have that do not feel like insane nitpicks are there have been a couple of plot beats where characters have done things where I feel like the repercussions should have been a bit more than what we got. But that's not a huge criticism, and we still could get ramifications for those actions in the next few episodes, so I'm not even gonna really lay that against the show yet until the season is over. I'm finally gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I am giving House of the Dragon last 2 episodes both 9s out of 10s for how damn well they have played off of what's been built up to them. I feel from the second that title card starts rolling so much tension with just that's A+ television. This whole season could be ranked on that level depending on how it finishes off. Stay tuned for future reviews and like and subscribe if you have not already. Rings of Power review will be dropping tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I got books, I got merch. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.